My name is Sarah Jenkins. I'm 32 years old, and I'm an archivist for the city's Historical Society. Standing at the altar of St. Jude's Catholic Church, in a dress I'd chosen myself, without the antique lace Eleanor had promised, I watched Father Michael turn the page to the marriage vows. The air was thick with the scent of lilies and the nervous anticipation of 100 guests. Peter, my fiancé, stood beside me, his hand clammy in mine, looking impossibly handsome in his charcoal suit. Father Michael cleared his throat and began, "If anyone here present knows any reason why these two persons should not be joined in holy matrimony, let them speak now or forever hold their peace." A collective breath seemed to hold in the church. Then, a rustle from the third pew. My heart, which had been beating a gentle rhythm moments before, lurched into a frantic drum. Eleanor, Peter's mother, rose slowly, her eyes fixed on Father Michael, a look of grim determination on her face. A gasp rippled through the congregation. Peter squeezed my hand, a silent plea in his eyes, but he said nothing. Eleanor's voice, usually a soft, persuasive murmur, cut through the silence like a shard of glass. "Father Michael, you cannot marry them. This marriage is a mistake. Sarah is not right for my son, and she is not fit to join our family." The words hung in the air, echoing the very doubts and humiliations she'd inflicted on me for months. I felt a cold, spreading numbness, a strange clarity amidst the searing embarrassment. My life, and Peter's, would never be the same after this moment, but I didn't know how it would change, or that Eleanor's desperate act would ultimately free me. To understand how we arrived at that impossible moment, you need to know Peter and Eleanor. I met Peter 2 years prior at a charity gala. He was an accountant, charming and quiet, with a kind smile. We connected instantly, talking for hours about classic films and our shared love for long walks in the park. He was everything I thought I wanted, gentle, attentive, and seemingly devoted. When he introduced me to his mother, Eleanor, I was initially charmed. She was elegant, sophisticated, and seemed genuinely pleased to meet me. She had a way of making you feel like the most interesting person in the room, asking thoughtful questions about my work as an archivist, admiring my passion for history. But beneath the polished veneer, a subtle current of judgment always flowed. The first hint of trouble came when Peter proposed. Eleanor was delighted, but her delight quickly morphed into a proprietary interest in the wedding planning. She insisted on taking the lead, citing her extensive experience and impeccable taste. Peter, bless his heart, just shrugged and said, "Mom just wants to help, Sarah. It'll make things easier." My first instinct was to politely decline, but Peter's unwavering belief in his mother's good intentions, coupled with her insistent phone calls and emails, gradually wore me down. Eleanor was a master of the soft demand, couching her control in terms of family tradition and Peter's preferences. She even insisted on using her family's priest, Father Michael, for the ceremony, despite Peter and I having a different parish we occasionally attended. "He knows Peter so well," she'd chirped, "and he'll make the ceremony so personal." I swallowed my reservations, telling myself it was just part of marrying into a close-knit family. One of the most significant family traditions Eleanor frequently mentioned was the antique lace. It was a delicate, intricate piece, supposedly hand-stitched by Peter's great-grandmother, meant to be incorporated into the wedding dress of the next bride. Eleanor spoke of it with reverence, describing its history and the love it represented. She promised to give it to me when the time was right, implying it was a symbol of my acceptance into the family. I imagined it as a beautiful detail on my simple ivory gown, a tangible link to Peter's heritage. But every time I asked about it, Eleanor would demur. "Oh, darling, it's being carefully cleaned," or "I'm still deciding the best way to present it to you." The lace became a phantom limb of my wedding, always talked about, never seen, an unspoken test I felt I was constantly failing. As the wedding planning progressed, Eleanor's control tightened. She decided on the venue, the caterer, and even the flower arrangements, overriding my suggestions with a practiced smile and a dismissive "Oh, that's lovely, dear," but Peter always preferred. She even took charge of the guest list, adding dozens of her own friends and family members I'd never met, while quietly forgetting to send invitations to some of my distant relatives. When I gently pushed back, Peter would become visibly uncomfortable, often changing the subject or saying, "It's just easier to let Mom handle it, Sarah. You know how she is." I started to feel like a guest at my own wedding, a prop in a production directed solely by Eleanor. Then came the financial manipulation. Eleanor, with great fanfare, announced that she would pay for the entire wedding, a gesture she framed as incredibly generous. "We want you both to start your lives without any financial burden," she declared. I was grateful, but my gratitude quickly soured when she used it as leverage. During a budget review she called with Peter and me, she started questioning my financial stability. "An archivist, dear, how much does that truly pay? Peter has such a promising career. We just want to ensure he's making a sensible choice." She implied I was marrying Peter for his family's money, despite my own steady income and savings. When I asked for a detailed breakdown of the wedding expenses, she produced vague spreadsheets, always with round numbers, and refused to share vendor contracts directly. My archivist's mind, trained to spot inconsistencies, flagged these discrepancies, but Peter waved them away. "Mom's just not great with paperwork, Sarah. Don't worry about it." The social humiliation reached its peak at the rehearsal dinner, just 2 nights before the wedding. Eleanor, radiant in a silk gown, took the microphone for a toast. What started as praise for Peter quickly turned into a thinly veiled critique of me. She spoke of Peter's sacrifice and his unwavering commitment to family values, implying that I somehow lacked them. Then, with a saccharine smile, she raised her glass and said, "And to Peter, who always puts family first, even when it means making difficult choices." We all remember his wonderful relationship with Amanda, who would have fit in perfectly with our family traditions. Amanda was Peter's ex-girlfriend, someone I knew Eleanor had adored. The room fell silent, then erupted in nervous laughter. Peter just looked at his plate, embarrassed, but did nothing. I felt a flush creep up my neck, the weight of 100 eyes on me. The family lace, of course, was still nowhere to be seen. The day before the wedding, I finally reached my breaking point about the lace. I called Eleanor directly. "Eleanor, about the lace for my dress. The seamstress needs it first thing in the morning for final alterations. Could I pick it up tonight?" There was a long pause. "Oh, darling," she finally said, her voice dripping with feigned distress, "I am absolutely heartbroken. I can't seem to find it anywhere. I must have misplaced it during the move. I'm so terribly sorry." The move had happened over a year ago. It was a flimsy excuse, and I knew it. Something clicked inside me. My archivist's brain, accustomed to piecing together fragments of history, suddenly saw a pattern. I went to Peter's apartment, ostensibly to pick up something for the wedding. While he was in the shower, I found his old photo albums, tucked away in a dusty box. My hands trembled as I flipped through them. There, in numerous photos, was Amanda, Peter's ex, at family gatherings, looking perfectly at home. In one photo, she was wearing a dress, and a piece of familiar, delicate lace was clearly visible, sewn onto the bodice. It was the lace. My heart sank, but a strange sense of vindication also bloomed. Eleanor hadn't misplaced it, she had given it to Amanda, or at least intended for Amanda to have it. She never intended for me to wear it, or to truly be part of her family. Later that evening, I called Peter's Aunt Carol, a sweet, gossipy woman I'd grown fond of. Casually, I asked about the family lace. Carol sighed. "Oh, that beautiful piece. Eleanor was so sure Peter would marry Amanda, she practically had it sewn into Amanda's dress for a family portrait a few years back. She was devastated when they broke up. I think she always hoped they'd get back together." The pieces clicked into place. Eleanor wasn't just controlling, she actively disliked me and wanted to prevent this marriage. Her generosity was a leash, her traditions a weapon. Peter's passivity wasn't just weakness, it was a quiet complicity, a refusal to stand up to his mother for me. I spent that night in a quiet hotel room, not the one Peter and I were supposed to share. I confided in Emily, my maid of honor, who listened with a fierce protectiveness. "Sarah, you don't have to go through with this," she'd said, her voice firm. I knew she was right. I had a long, hard conversation with Peter, away from Eleanor. I asked him, plainly, if he truly wanted to marry me. He looked away, fiddling with his tie. "Mom just wants what's best, Sarah. She'll come around." His inability to defend me, to even articulate his own desire to marry me, was a final, crushing blow. I decided then that I would walk down that aisle, but with my eyes wide open. I would give Peter the chance to stand up for us, and if he didn't, I would make my own choice. I had my own dress, a beautiful ivory satin gown that needed no antique lace to make it special. And so, there I stood, at the altar, the lilies scent. The air, Father Michael looking from Eleanor to Peter, then to me. Eleanor's voice still echoed in the silence. "Sarah is not right for my son, and she is not fit to join our family." Peter, my supposed partner, stood frozen, looking at his mother with wide, helpless eyes, then at me with a plea for understanding, but offering no defense. He was silent. Father Michael, his face creased with sorrow and discomfort, finally spoke. He looked directly at Peter, then at me, avoiding Eleanor's gaze. I cannot proceed with this ceremony," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I apologize, but under the circumstances, I cannot in good conscience unite you." The words were a confirmation of everything I had suspected. Eleanor had clearly poisoned the well, filling Father Michael's ears with whatever lies or accusations she deemed necessary to stop the wedding. A strange calm settled over me. The humiliation was immense, but it was overshadowed by a profound sense of clarity. I looked at Peter, really looked at him. His weakness, his inability to protect me, his silent complicity in his mother's cruelty, was laid bare. He was not the man I thought I loved. I turned my gaze from him to Eleanor, who stood triumphant, a smug satisfaction slowly spreading across her face. "Eleanor," I said, my voice steady, cutting through the stunned silence, "thank you. You've made my decision very clear." I reached down, unclasped the engagement ring from my finger, and placed it gently on the velvet cushion of the altar, beside the priest's book. Then, without another word, I turned and walked out of the church. Emily, my maid of honor, was by my side in an instant, her arm linked through mine, her presence a silent testament of support. I heard the murmurs, the gasps, the frantic whispers behind me, but I didn't look back. The heavy oak doors swung shut, muffling the sounds of the aborted ceremony. The wedding was, of course, cancelled. Peter called and texted for weeks, alternating between apologies and blaming his mother, but I never answered. He never truly understood what he had lost, or what he had allowed his mother to take from me. Eleanor's stunt caused a significant rift in their family, with some relatives openly criticizing her behavior, while others, predictably, rallied to her defense. I managed to get most of my deposits back, with Emily's help, and the support of my own family. The relief I felt was immense, a heavy burden lifted from my shoulders. I hadn't lost a husband, I had dodged a life sentence. Months later, I was walking through a small antique shop, browsing for old maps for a new exhibit at the Historical Society. My eyes landed on a display of vintage textiles. There, draped over a wooden mannequin, was a piece of antique lace, delicate and intricate, remarkably similar to the one Eleanor had promised. It was beautiful, undeniably. But this time, looking at it, I felt no longing, no sense of exclusion. It was just a piece of fabric, a remnant of someone else's history. I never did get that lace, but I gained something far more valuable, my own peace.